The massive space station Kepler Prime hung in the void like a jewel made of metal and glass. Ships from dozens of different worlds filled the docking bays, their crews rushing through the corridors with fear in their eyes. The Galactic Council had called an emergency meeting, and everyone knew what that meant. The news was bad. Very bad. Ambassador Zethkar from the Altarian Federation stood at the center of the Great Council chamber. His blue skin had turned pale, and his forearms shook as he held the data pad. The other ambassadors sat in their floating chairs, waiting to hear words they all dreaded. "The outer colonies are gone," Zethkar said, his voice barely above. "Whisper all of them. The mining stations on Vega 7, the research posts in the Orion Arm, the trading hubs near the Galactic Rim. Everything has gone silent." A ripple of fear moved through the chamber. The Crystalline Collective's representative, a being made of living crystal, chimed with worry. The massive Corvin Empire's ambassador, a creature that looked like a walking tank, shifted nervously in his reinforced chair. "How many?" asked Thyman, the council leader. His green skin was covered in sweat, even though the chamber was kept cold. 47 colonies. 3 mining worlds. 12 research stations. Over 2 million souls. Just ... gone. Zethkar's voice cracked. "The Void Hunters have returned." The words hit the chamber like a physical blow. Several ambassadors made sounds of distress in their native languages. Others began praying to whatever gods their species believed in. The Void Hunters were a name whispered in fear across the galaxy. Ancient predators that appeared every 1,000 years to feed on terror and death before vanishing back into the dark spaces between stars. Dr. Alina Martinez sat in the observation gallery, watching the panic spread through the alien diplomats like a disease. She was the only human in the room, and many of the ambassadors had forgotten she was even there. That was fine with her. Humans had learned early that being underestimated was often an advantage. Alina looked younger than her 45 years. With short brown hair and calm green eyes, she wore a simple blue uniform that marked her as Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. Most of the alien species thought humans were barely civilized primitives who had gotten lucky with faster-than-light travel. They saw Earth as a dangerous world full of violent creatures who somehow managed to build spaceships. They were not entirely wrong. "We must retreat," Thyman announced, his voice heavy with defeat. "Ah! Pull all our fleets back to the inner systems. Abandon the outer rim. It's the only way to survive." "But what about the colonies that are still out there?" asked the Corvin ambassador. "The people who haven't been evacuated yet?" "We cannot save them," Thyman replied. "The hunters move too fast. Their ships are invisible to our sensors until they attack. By the time we know they're there, it's too late." Alina watched the alien leaders give up without a fight. It made sense from their perspective. The Void Hunters had been the galaxy's worst nightmare for millions of years. Every species had stories about them. They came from the dark, killed everything they found, and disappeared like smoke. No one had ever successfully fought them off, but humans had different stories. Alina thought about the classified files hidden in the depths of Earth's military archives. Ancient ruins on Mars that told of previous hunter invasions. Forerunner technology recovered from impact craters around the solar system. Most importantly, she thought about Admiral Jack Morrison and the fleets that were supposedly conducting peaceful exploration missions in the Outer Rim. The galaxy thought humans were explorers, driven by curiosity. They had no idea that Earth's children were actually conducting the largest military reconnaissance operation in galactic history. "The decision is made," Thyman said, bringing Alina back to the present. "All civilian populations will be evacuated to the inner systems within 60 standard days. Military fleets will establish defensive positions around our core worlds. We'll make our stand there." The ambassadors began filing out of the chamber, their voices a mixture of fear and resignation. Alina remained in her seat, thinking about what she had just witnessed. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations had just agreed to abandon 2/3 of known space without firing a single shot. As the chamber emptied, Thyman noticed Alina still sitting in the observation gallery. He floated up to her level, his chair humming softly. "Dr. Martinez," he said, "I apologize." In all the chaos, I forgot to ask for Earth's position on this matter. Alina stood and smiled politely. Earth will follow the Council's decision, of course. Our colonies are small and few. We can evacuate them easily. Thyman nodded, looking relieved. Good. I know your species is aggressive, but these are not enemies you can fight with conventional weapons. The hunters are beyond anything the galaxy has ever faced. Of course, Alina agreed. We understand completely. Thyman floated away, leaving Alina alone in the chamber. She pulled out her communicator and sent a coded message that would travel through hidden relay stations back to Earth. The message was simple. The Council has voted to retreat. Proceed with Operation Shadowbreak. Alina thought about Admiral Morrison and his crews spread across dozens of star systems and ships the Council didn't know existed. They were out there right now, watching and waiting. Earth's children had been preparing for this day for 50 years. She remembered her first briefing after joining the diplomatic corps. General Nathan Cross had shown her the ruins on Mars. The ancient warnings left by a species that had faced the hunters millions of years ago. The Forerunners had called them the Devourers of Light, creatures that fed on fear and left only darkness behind. But the Forerunners had also left something else. Weapon designs, ship blueprints, and most importantly, tactical analysis of hunter weaknesses. Earth scientists had spent decades reverse engineering Forerunner technology while pretending to study harmless archaeological artifacts. Alina walked to the observation deck and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Void Hunters were moving through space like a plague, destroying everything they touched. The galaxy's civilizations were preparing to hide and hope the monsters would go away. They had no idea that monsters were already watching the hunters from the shadows. Monsters that had evolved on a world so hostile that they considered being shot at a form of entertainment. Monsters that had been politely pretending to be civilized for 50 years while building the most advanced military force the galaxy had ever seen. Alina smiled as she watched the alien ships flee toward the inner systems. Soon, the Void Hunters would learn what humans had known for millions of years. There was always something bigger and meaner lurking in the dark, and humanity was very tired of hiding. Captain Lisa Romano stood on the bridge of the UES Silent Dawn, watching the ruins of what used to be New Vega colony drift past her view screen. The stealth destroyer hung invisible in space, its advanced cloaking systems making it undetectable. To both hunter sensors and the few remaining Galactic Council ships in the area, "Jesus Christ," whispered Lieutenant Tony Baker from the sensor station. "There's nothing left. 3 million people lived here last week." Lisa kept her face calm, but inside she felt the familiar cold anger that every human carried. The Void Hunters had not just destroyed the colony. They had pulled it apart piece by piece, taking their time. The debris field showed signs of systematic harvesting. They had kept the population alive as long as possible. Captain called Ensign Maria Santos from Communications. "I'm picking up hunter ships. It's 3 of them, moving through the residential sector." On the main screen, 3 dark shapes moved between the floating wreckage like sharks. The hunter vessels looked more grown than built, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with sickly light. They were searching through the ruins, looking for survivors. To terrorize before killing them, Lisa watched one of the hunter ships stop next to what used to be a children's hospital. The alien vessel extended feeding tubes into the wreckage, and Lisa could see bodies being pulled inside. Her hands tightened on the command chair's armrests until her knuckles turned white. "Orders, Captain?" asked Commander Pete Williams, her first officer. His voice was carefully controlled, but Lisa could see the same anger in his eyes that she felt in her chest. "Continue observing," Lisa said through gritted teeth. "Record everything. Do not engage." The words tasted like poison in her mouth. Every instinct screamed at her to open fire, to make the monsters pay for what they had done.
Ow.
But her orders from Admiral Morrison were clear. Observe, learn, and stay hidden. The time for fighting would come soon enough, 8,000 light-years away. Deep beneath the Colorado mountains, General Nathan Cross studied the reports coming in from dozens of hidden human ships scattered across the outer rim. The war room was carved from solid rock shielded from every form of detection the galaxy knew about. Maps of known space covered the walls, marked with red dots showing hunter attacks and blue dots showing human observation posts. "The pattern is becoming clear," said Colonel Janet Hayes, Cross's intelligence chief. She pointed to the holographic display showing hunter movements. They're not just killing randomly. They're harvesting specific types of fear. Children, medical facilities, evacuation ships. They feed on terror, but only certain kinds. Cross nodded grimly. "What about our assets in the field?" "All ships are in position and maintaining stealth protocols," Hayes replied. "Captain Romano's squadron is tracking the main hunter fleet. Commander Foster's fighters are shadowing their scout groups. Lieutenant Martinez's deep space reconnaissance team has located what appears to be a hunter staging area. Any contact with Council forces? Negative. They're all retreating to the inner systems as expected. The Corvins lost an entire battle group yesterday when they tried to make a stand at Rigel's station. The hunters tore through them like paper." Cross stared at the tactical display, watching red dots spread across the galactic map like a disease. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment. While the galaxy saw them as primitive newcomers, Earth's military had been studying every scrap of Forerunner data, building weapons and ships in hidden facilities, training soldiers for a war the rest of the galaxy couldn't imagine winning. Forerunner ruins on Mars had told the story. The Void Hunters were not invincible. They were predators, but they were also cowards. They attacked weak prey and ran from anything that fought back effectively. The problem was that no species in the current galaxy had the right combination of technology and sheer bloody-mindedness to make them run. No species except humans. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster flew her stealth fighter through the Titan Belt, following a hunter scouting party as it stalked an Altarian refugee convoy. Her fighter was a work of art, combining Forerunner stealth technology with human engineering and a very human philosophy of warfare. If you can see it, you can kill it. Eagle 2 to Eagle 1 came the voice of Lieutenant Dan Cooper over the "Come, I count 6 hunter scouts moving to intercept the convoy." "I see them," Amy replied, watching the alien ships position themselves for an ambush. The refugee convoy had no idea they were being hunted. The Altarian escort ships were powerful by galactic standards, but Amy had read the tactical reports. It would last maybe 30 seconds against the hunters. "Orders, Commander?" asked Sergeant Mike Rodriguez from Eagle 3. Amy watched the hunter ships close in on the unsuspecting refugees, families, children, people running for their lives from monsters they couldn't fight. Her finger hovered over the weapon's release, and every muscle in her body screamed at her to attack. "Maintain stealth," she forced herself to say. "Continue observation." But she made a mental note of every hunter ship's position, speed, and weapon signatures. When the time came, she would remember this moment. They all would. Back on the Silent Dawn, Lisa Romano received a priority transmission from Earth Command. The message was brief and encrypted. Its meaning was clear. Operation Shadowbreak was moving to Phase 2. All human ships were to begin active reconnaissance of hunter forces while maintaining stealth protocols. Commander Williams, Lisa, called to her first officer. "Plot a course for the hunter staging area. It's time we got a closer look at our new friends." "Aye, Captain," Williams replied with a grim smile. "Should I inform the crew?" "Tell them we're done playing hide-and-seek. From now on, we're hunters hunting the hunters." The Silent Dawn moved deeper into hunter-controlled space, passing the wreckage of a dozen civilizations. Lisa studied the tactical data streaming in from other human ships. The hunters were good, but they had weaknesses. They relied on fear and intimidation rather than actual military skill. They were used to prey that panicked and ran. They had never faced an enemy that got angrier the more afraid it became in the deep space listening post, hidden in the Urt cloud of the Wolf system. Chief Petty Officer Kevin Murphy monitored Hunter communications. The aliens used subsonic frequencies that drove most species insane with terror. To human ears, they sounded like whales singing off-key. Another convoy hit in the Proxima system, Murphy reported to his commander. The hunters are broadcasting their feeding songs again. Lieutenant Sarah Barnes listened to the alien transmissions with professional interest. Frequency analysis shows they're calling for reinforcements. Something's got them excited. What had them excited was the growing realization that something was watching them. Hunter ships had begun reporting sensor ghosts, brief contacts that vanished when investigated. Their feeding operations were being observed by unknown vessels that stayed just out of range. The Void Hunters had ruled the galaxy through fear for millions of years. But now they were beginning to feel something they had never experienced before. The uncomfortable sensation of being stalked by something they couldn't see, in hidden bases scattered across human space. Admiral Jack Morrison's fleets prepared for the moment when stealth would give way to violence. Earth's children sharpened their claws in the dark, waiting for the order to show the galaxy what real predators looked like. The hunters thought they were apex predators. They were about to learn that there was always something higher on the food chain, and it had been watching them with cold, patient eyes while they fed on the weak. Humanity's war was about to begin. The mining colony of New Petra sat on a world that most species would call uninhabitable. The air was thin, the gravity was crushing, and the temperature dropped to -40 degrees at night. For the Corvin miners who worked there, it was a hardship posting that paid well because of the rare minerals buried in the planet's crust. Administrator Vekvar stood in the colony's command center, watching the evacuation ships lift off one by one. Most of the 12,000 civilians were already gone, but he had refused to leave until the last moment. The mineral deposits were too valuable to abandon without a fight. Sir called his aide, a young Corvin named Brechtel. Long-range sensors are detecting incoming ships, hunter signatures. Dekvar felt his blood turn to ice. The evacuation was only half complete. 6,000 people were still in the colony, hiding in reinforced shelters that were never designed to protect against void hunters. "How long do we have?" he asked. "For hours, maybe less." Dekvar looked at the tactical display showing the approaching hunter fleet. 12 ships, moving in perfect formation like a pack of predators. The colony's defenses were pathetic compared to what was coming. A few mining lasers and some old security drones would not stop creatures that had destroyed entire star systems. "Send out a distress call on all frequencies," he ordered. "Maybe someone will hear it." The message went out into space, a desperate plea for help that Dekvar knew no one would answer. The Galactic Council fleets were retreating to the inner systems. There was no cavalry coming to save New Petra. But someone did hear the call. Captain Ryan Murphy stood in the drop bay of the UES Wolverine, checking his equipment one last time. His battalion of 200 Marines was not supposed to be in this sector. They were officially conducting a training exercise near the Galactic Rim. But when the distress call from New Petra reached them, Murphy had made a command decision that would change everything. "Listen up, Marines," he called out to his troops. "We've got 12,000 civilians about to become Hunter Chow." The brass says we're not supposed to engage, but since when do Marines follow orders that don't make sense? A cheer went up from the assembled soldiers. These were not ordinary troops. They were the best Earth had to offer. Volunteers who had trained their entire lives for a war the galaxy didn't know was coming. They carried weapons that officially didn't exist and wore armor made from materials that had been reverse-engineered. From Forerunner ruins. "Remember your training," Murphy continued. "The hunters are big, they're mean, and they think they're scary. Show them what scary really looks like." The dropships launched from the Wolverine's belly, streaking toward New Petra's surface under full stealth. The Corvin sensors never detected them, neither did the approaching hunter fleet, which was focused on the terrified prey waiting in the colony. Staff Sergeant Kate Sullivan kicked in the door of the colony's command center, just as administrator Vekvar was preparing to send out a final message to his family. The Corvin administrator nearly fainted when he saw a human female walk into his command center without an environmental suit, breathing the thin air as if it were Earth's ocean breeze. "United Earth Marines," Kate announced in perfect Corvan. "We're here to help." Dekvar stared at her in disbelief. Kate Sullivan was not an imposing figure by human standards. She was 5 feet 6 inches tall, with brown hair pulled back in a regulation bun and calm blue eyes. But she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never met a problem she couldn't solve with applied violence. "You cannot be here," Deathworld stammered. "The hunters will be here in 2 hours. You need to evacuate immediately." Kate smiled, showing teeth that looked far too sharp for a supposedly civilized species. "Administrator, with all due respect, evacuating is not what Marines do. We're here to kill some monsters." It's outside the colony. The first hunter ships entered the atmosphere like falling stars. They descended slowly, taking their time, broadcasting the subsonic fear songs that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. The remaining Corvin civilians huddled in their shelters, paralyzed with terror. The hunters expected their prey to cower and wait for death. They did not expect to be met with concentrated weapons fire from positions they had not detected. Corporal Ben Carter lay behind a makeshift barricade, watching 3 hunter warriors advance toward his position. The aliens were 9 feet tall, covered in biomechanical armor that pulsed with organic light. They moved with the confidence of apex predators who had never faced serious resistance. Ben opened fire with his assault rifle, and the hunter in front jerked backward as kinetic rounds punched through its armor like tissue paper. The creature's death scream filled the air, a sound designed to drive enemies insane with fear. Ben laughed. "Is that all you got?" he yelled, putting another burst into the second hunter. "My grandmother hits harder than that." The third hunter charged him directly, its claws extended and its mouth open in a roar that had made entire species surrender without a fight.
Ow.
Ben dropped his rifle, pulled out his combat knife, and met the alien head-on. What followed was not a battle. It was an education. Administrator Vekver watched the fight through the colony's security cameras, unable to believe what he was seeing. The human soldier had grabbed the hunter warrior by its throat and was systematically tearing it apart with his bare hands. The alien's bioarmor, which could deflect energy weapons and resist explosive rounds, crumpled under human muscle power like aluminum foil. How is this possible? Deathworld whispered. Kate Sullivan stood beside him, calmly coordinating the battle. Through her cum system, "Administrator, your species evolved on a garden world with 0.8 gravity and perfect weather. Humans evolved on a planet that spent 4 billion years trying to kill everything that lived on it. We're built different." Across the colony, the pattern repeated itself. Hunter warriors that had terrorized civilizations found themselves facing enemies that seemed to enjoy being shot at. Human Marines advanced through hunter fear weapons as if they were listening to peaceful music. When their guns ran out of ammunition, they switched to knives. When their knives broke, they used their fists. Private Jake Wilson found himself surrounded by 5 hunter warriors in the colony's main square. The aliens closed in slowly, savoring his fear, broadcasting subsonic waves that should have reduced him to a gibbering wreck. Instead, Jake started laughing so hard he could barely stand up. "Oh man, you guys are ugly," he gasped between fits of laughter. "Did you lose a bet with evolution or something?" The hunters paused, confused. In millions of years of predation, they had never encountered prey that responded to their fear songs. With amusement, Jake took advantage of their hesitation to pull out a grenade, arm it, and charge straight into their midst. The explosion took out 3 of the aliens. Jake survived because human Marines were issued armor that could protect them from things that would vaporize most other species. He finished off the remaining 2 hunters with his sidearm while humming a tune from Earth. Captain Murphy's Marines worked through the colony methodically, treating the battle like a training exercise with live targets. They moved in perfect coordination, covering each other's advances and falling back only to draw more hunters into carefully prepared kill zones. By dawn, New Petra's 12,000 civilians were alive and safe. 300 void hunters were very definitively dead, their biomechanical corpses scattered across the colony like broken toys. As the sun rose over the mining world, Administrator Vekver stood in his command center, staring at the human Marines who were casually cleaning their weapons and joking about the fight. They had just accomplished something that military experts across the galaxy said was impossible. They had not only fought void hunters in direct combat, they had won so decisively that it looked easy. "How do we report this?" Brechtel asked quietly. Deckver looked at the carnage outside, then at Kate Sullivan, who was sharing ration bars with her troops and laughing about something one of them had said. Very carefully, he replied. Very carefully indeed. The galaxy was about to learn that the primitives from Earth were neither primitive nor harmless. They were predators who had been politely pretending to be civilized, and their patience had just run out. The news from New Petra spread through the Galactic Council like wildfire. The official reports were carefully written to hide the most disturbing details, but rumors traveled faster than official documents. 12,000 Corvan civilians had survived a direct hunter attack, not evacuated, not rescued by arriving fleets. They had survived because 200 human soldiers had killed 300 Void Hunters in direct combat. Council, Leader Themin read the reports in his private chambers, his hands shaking as he scrolled through the impossible details. Security camera footage showed human Marines fighting Hunter warriors hand-to-hand and winning. Audio recordings captured humans laughing while Hunter fear songs played in the background. Most disturbing of all, medical scans showed that the humans had suffered only minor casualties. Ambassador Zethkar burst into Thymon's chambers without announcement, his blue face pale with shock. Have you seen the classified footage from New Petra? I have seen enough, Thymon replied quietly. The humans, what are they? I don't know, Zethkar admitted, but I think we need to find out very quickly. 8,000 light-years away. Admiral Jack Morrison stood in the war room beneath the Colorado mountains. Reading the authorization he had waited 50 years to receive. The message was brief and came directly from Earth's president. Operation Shadowbreak is now active. You have full authorization to engage. Morrison looked up at the holographic display showing human fleet positions across the galaxy. For decades, these ships had hidden in the dark spaces between stars, conducting reconnaissance missions that the Galactic Council believed were simple exploration. It was time to show the galaxy what Earth's children had really been doing out there. Barnes, he called to his aide. Send the signal to all commands. The hunting season is now open. Across 47 star systems, human warships that had been invisible for decades suddenly appeared on every sensor screen in the galaxy. The UES Retribution, humanity's first dreadnought, dropped its stealth field in the middle of a hunter armada near the Vega system. The massive ship was 3 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that should not have existed according to galactic law. Captain Lisa Romano stood on the Retribution's bridge, watching hunter ships scramble to respond to her sudden appearance. The aliens had been methodically harvesting a destroyed colony when the human dreadnought materialized among them like a ghost becoming solid. All weapons, open fire, Lisa commanded. The Retribution's main guns fired beams of pure energy that had been reverse-engineered from Forerunner
technology.
The first hunter ship simply vanished, vaporized so completely that its atoms scattered into space. The second ship tried to run, but human weapons had longer range than anything the hunters had encountered in millions of years. Target the command. Ship, Lisa ordered. I want prisoners. The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. When it was over, 12 hunter vessels had been destroyed or disabled, and the Retribution had not suffered a single hit. The surviving hunter crews found themselves facing boarding parties of human Marines, who treated their biomechanical armor like thin plastic. Similar scenes played out across the Outer Rim as humanity's hidden war fleets revealed themselves. The galaxy's most feared predators discovered that they had been sharing space with something much more dangerous than themselves. Colonel Steve Barnes led the orbital assault on Kepler-4 for 2B, a world that the hunters had turned into a staging area for their attacks. The planet was a nightmare by galactic standards, with surface temperatures that could melt lead and an atmosphere of pure sulfuric acid. Most species would have needed massive environmental suits just to survive there. Steve's paratroopers dropped through the acid atmosphere in simple breathing masks, treating the hostile environment like a minor inconvenience. Their equipment was designed to function in conditions that would destroy most technology within minutes. Remember, people? Steve called over the cum as his troops descended toward the planet's surface. The hunters picked this place because they thought no one could follow them here. Let's show them how wrong they were. The hunter base was a massive biomechanical structure that grew directly from the planet's crust. It pulsed with organic light and extended feeding tubes deep into the planet's core. Thousands of hunter warriors defended it, creatures that had been bred for warfare on a dozen different worlds. They had never faced enemies who considered hellish conditions a pleasant change of scenery. Private First Class Danny Murphy landed, his drop pod directly on top of a hunter guard tower, crushing the structure and its occupants with the impact. He kicked open the pod's door and stepped out into the acid rain, his armor steaming but holding strong. "Honey, I'm home," he yelled, opening fire on the scrambling hunter defenders. The assault turned into a rout within the first hour. Warriors that could terrorize entire civilizations found themselves being hunted through their own base by human soldiers, who moved through the toxic environment like they were born there. The aliens' biomechanical weapons, designed to function in the planet's hostile conditions, proved useless against human armor and tactics. Staff Sergeant Lucy Chen cornered a group of hunter officers in what appeared to be a command center. The aliens were larger than her, better armed, and backed by technology that had conquered galaxies. She was a 5'4" woman from Nebraska with a bad attitude and weapons that bent the laws of physics. "Surrender now, and we might let you live," she offered in perfectly pronounced hunter language. The aliens responded by attacking with everything they had. Lucy sighed, switched her rifle to full automatic, and proceeded to demonstrate why humans had spent millions of years at the top of their planet's food chain back on Kepler Prime. Dr. Elena Martinez walked into the emergency council session with a confidence that made the alien ambassadors nervous. She was no longer pretending to be a harmless diplomat from a primitive world. Her smile showed too many teeth, and her eyes held the same cold calculation that her species' ancestors had used to hunt mammoths across frozen plains. "Honored members of the council," she began, her voice carrying easily across the chamber, "believe we need to discuss humanity's role in current events." Diamond floated forward in his chair, visibly nervous. "Dr. Martinez, the reports from New Petra are ... concerning? Perhaps you could explain how 200 human soldiers were able to defeat 300 void hunters." Elena's smile widened. "Honored council leader, I think you're asking the wrong question. Should be asking why we waited so long to act." She activated a holographic display that showed the current tactical situation. Human fleets were engaged across the entire Outer Rim, systematically destroying hunter forces that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. "For 50 years, Elena continued, humanity has been conducting what you believed were exploration missions. We never corrected this misunderstanding because it served our purposes. We needed to map hunter territories, study their tactics, and identify their weaknesses." Ambassador Zethkar leaned forward, his forearms gripping his chair. "You mean, you've been conducting military reconnaissance operations without authorization?" "Authorization from whom?" Lena asked politely. "The council that just voted to abandon 2/3 of the galaxy without a fight. It's the same council that considers humanity too primitive to have a voice in military matters." The chamber fell silent. Elena looked around at the assembled ambassadors, beings from dozens of different worlds who were beginning to understand that they had been sharing space with apex predators for half a century. "The truth is simple," Elena said. "We joined the Galactic community. We learned about the Void Hunters from Forerunner ruins on Mars. We spent 50 years preparing for their return because we knew that eventually someone would have to stop them. We assumed it would be one of the great civilizations. The Corvin Empire, perhaps, or the Crystalline Collective?" She paused, letting her words sink in. "We were disappointed to discover that all of you were sheep pretending to be wolves, so we decided to handle the problem ourselves." Diamond's voice was barely a whisper. "What are you saying?" Lena's expression became deadly serious. "I'm saying that Earth's children have been politely tolerating the galaxy's existence for 50 years. We've been good neighbors, followed your laws, and pretended to be impressed by your technology, but our patience has limits." She gestured to the tactical display showing hunter forces being systematically destroyed across dozens of star systems. "Void Hunters are no longer your problem. They're ours now. We're very good at solving problems. The council chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. The galaxy's most feared predators were being hunted to extinction by a species that most aliens had considered barely civilized primitives. Elena gathered her materials and prepared to leave. If you'll excuse me, I need to coordinate with our military commanders. There's still work to do. As she walked toward the exit, Thyman called after her. Dr. Martinez, what does humanity want in return for this? ... intervention. Elena paused at the doorway and looked back with that same too-sharp smile. Just keep being interesting, honored council leader. It would be terribly boring if we had to find new neighbors. The final battle took place in the Nexus system, where the Void Hunters had built their primary base on a rogue planet drifting in the cold space between stars. The world had no sun, no warmth, and no atmosphere that any civilized species could breathe. The surface temperature was 300 degrees below zero. The gravity was strong enough to crush most aliens flat. General Nathan Cross stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, humanity's newest battleship, watching the dark planet grow. Larger on the view screen, he had waited his entire career for this moment. It's a chance to face the galaxy's ultimate predators on their home ground and show them what real monsters looked like. General called Captain Jennifer Walsh from the tactical station. Long-range sensors are detecting massive biomechanical structures on the planet's surface. It looks like they've been building down there for centuries, Cross nodded grimly. The hunters had turned the rogue planet into a fortress, a place where they could retreat between their 1,000-year feeding cycles. They thought they were safe there, hidden in the cold darkness where no civilized species would dare to follow. They had not counted on humanity's children. Launch all fighters, Cross ordered. Begin orbital bombardment of defensive positions. And someone wake up the Marines. They've got work to do. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster led her fighter squadron into the planet's thin atmosphere, her instruments screaming warnings about the hostile conditions. The cold was so intense that most ship systems would fail within minutes. The gravity made maneuvering nearly impossible for aircraft. It's designed for standard worlds. Amy's pilots considered it perfect flying weather. Eagle Squadron, this is Eagle 1, she called over the comm. Target those biomechanical towers. Let's knock on their front door and see who answers. Her fighter dove toward the planet's surface, weaving between defensive fire from Hunter installations. The aliens' weapons were powerful, but they were designed to fight enemies who used predictable tactics and worried about taking casualties. Human pilots had different priorities. Lieutenant Dan Cooper's fighter took a direct hit from a Hunter defense beam, and his left engine exploded in a shower of sparks. Instead of retreating, he pointed his crippled aircraft at the nearest enemy position and accelerated. This is Eagle 7, he called calmly over the radio. I'm going in hard. Tell my wife I love her. The impact destroyed both Cooper's fighter and the Hunter installation in a ball of fire that could be seen from orbit. The explosion triggered a chain reaction that brought down 3 more defensive towers. Amy smiled grimly and keyed her radio. All fighters, you heard the man. Let's make some noise. On the planet's surface, the Hunter Queen stirred from her millennial-long sleep. She was a creature the size of a city, a biomechanical nightmare that had been the source of the Hunter species' power since before the first civilizations learned to make fire. Her psychic scream had driven entire species to madness across galactic history. She rose from the planet's core like a mountain coming to life, her massive form breaking through layers of rock and ice. Hunter warriors swarmed around her like antibodies responding to an infection, ready to defend their mother against whatever primitive species had dared to disturb her rest. The Queen opened her mind and sent out her most powerful psychic attack, a wave of pure terror that had never failed to break her enemy's will to fight. The scream traveled through space at the speed of thought, washing over the human fleet like a tsunami of fear. On the bridge of the Vengeance, General Cross felt the alien's mental assault hit him like a physical blow. Images of death and horror flooded his mind, visions designed to reduce him to a gibbering wreck. For a moment, he saw himself as the Queen wanted him to see himself, a tiny, insignificant creature facing forces beyond his comprehension. Then, Cross started laughing. "Ma'am," he said to the empty space where he imagined the Queen's presence to be, "I grew up in Detroit. You're going to have to try a lot harder than that." Across the human fleet, the response was the same. The Queen's terror scream, which had broken the minds of countless species, was met with laughter, creative profanity, and requests for the alien to try harder next time. Captain Lisa Romano stood on the bridge of her stealth destroyer, watching. Her crew respond to the psychic attack with amusement rather than fear. "Well," she announced, "that was unpleasant. Shall we return the favor?" The human fleet opened fire with weapons that turned matter into energy and folded space-time like origami. The Queen's biomechanical defenses, which had protected her for millions of years, crumbled under the assault like cardboard in a hurricane. But the real battle was just beginning. Staff Sergeant Mike Torres led his Marine battalion through the Queen's internal passages, navigating corridors filled with digestive acids that could dissolve most known materials. His troops moved through the hostile environment like they were taking a casual stroll, their armor protecting them from conditions that would kill most other species instantly. "Jesus, it smells like a garbage dump in here," complained Corporal Jamie Wilson, stepping over a pool of acid that was eating through the floor. "Stay focused, people," Torres called back. "We're here to kill the biggest, meanest thing in the galaxy. Try to look professional." The Marines worked their way deeper into the Queen's body, fighting through waves of hunter-defenders while the massive creature tried to crush them with her own anatomy. Corridors collapsed around them, toxic gases filled the air, and biomechanical weapons fired from every surface. The Marines treated it like a training exercise with unusually creative obstacles. Private Kelly Martinez found herself face to face with a hunter warform, a creature the size of a tank that had been bred specifically to kill in close combat. The alien opened its mouth to release a fear scream that had paralyzed armies. Kelly responded by shoving a grenade down its throat and diving for cover. "Choke on that, ugly," she yelled as the explosion echoed through the passage. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster had managed to penetrate the Queen's outer defenses and was flying her fighter through the creature's circulatory system, following passages that pulsed with alien life. Her mission was to locate the Queen's central nervous system and plant a nuclear device that would kill the creature from the inside. "This is Eagle 1, she reported over the com. "I'm inside the target, proceeding to primary objective." Queen's immune system responded to the intrusion, sending biomechanical defenders to stop the human pilot. Amy weaved between the attacks, her fighters' guns carving through alien tissue like a hot knife through butter. She found the Queen's brain chamber, a massive space filled with pulsing neural tissue and bioluminescent displays. The sight would have driven most species mad with its alien wrongness. Amy took one look at it and decided it was the ugliest thing she had ever seen. "Target acquired," she announced, arming the nuclear device. "Time to take out the trash." The explosion started deep within the Queen's brain and spread outward like a cancer of light and fire. The massive creature's death scream echoed across subspace, carrying a message of impossible defeat to every corner of the galaxy, for the first time in millions of years. The Void Hunter's ultimate weapon had been destroyed by prey that refused to be afraid. The surviving hunter ships fled beyond the galactic rim, carrying stories of creatures from a death world who laughed at fear and turned warfare into an art form. The galaxy's apex predators had been broken by a species that treated hell itself as a pleasant vacation spot. As the human fleet regrouped after the battle, General Cross stood on his bridge and looked out at the stars. The war was over, but he knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had revealed its true nature to the galaxy, and there would be consequences. "General," called Captain Walsh, "we're receiving communications from council ships. Want to discuss terms for the post-war period." Cross smiled the same predatory smile that his ancestors had worn while hunting across the African savanna. "Tell them we'll be happy to talk. After all, someone needs to keep the galaxy safe from the things that go bump in the night." Dr. Elena Martinez returned to the Galactic Council one final time, no longer bothering to hide what she was. The alien ambassadors sat in their chairs like frightened children, staring at the representative of a species that had casually exterminated the galaxy's worst nightmare. "The Void Hunters are gone," she announced simply. "They will not return." Their surviving ships have fled beyond the galactic rim, and they will not come back while humanity exists. Thyman leaned forward in his floating chair, his voice barely a whisper. What does Earth want in return for this service? Alina considered the question carefully. Round her, the galaxy's most powerful civilizations waited for her answer, knowing that humanity could demand anything and they would have no choice but to agree. We want what we've always wanted, she said finally, to be left alone to do our own thing. Keep your borders open for trade. Don't interfere with our colonies. And remember that the things that used to hunt you in the dark are now afraid of us. She paused, letting the implications sink in. Oh, and try to stay interesting. It would be terribly boring if we had to find new neighbors.